Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video I want to give you a little tip on how to make better and softer landings. So just be aware, soft doesn't always mean good, but that's not what this video is about. Instead, what this video is about is on landing technique. So many of you have probably heard that you should look towards the end of the runway in order to make a good landing. But let me explain to you why that is actually the case. So the important thing over here is that you are moving so quick and that you are sitting so high in an airliner that you can barely make out your actual altitude. Instead, what you do is you look at the end of the runway and then use your altimeter, or rather your radio altimeter, in order to judge how high you actually are. So let's put this to the test. At 50, look to the end of the runway, and then just listen to the radio altitude. See how easy it becomes to flare the airplane and make a smooth landing of it? So, let me summarize the technique for you now that you've seen it in action. At 50 feet, we start looking towards the end of the runway. And the reason we do it is because we use what we call peripheral vision. Now, peripheral vision basically means that on the edges of our eyes, on the sides, we don't actively see things. So things are very blurry over there, things are hard to see, things are hard to recognize. And you can check this for yourself. If you're sitting in your car and you are just looking in front, then you will see that you can't actively see what's happening to the side of your field of vision, and things are rather blurry over there. However, what you can do is you can use this to judge how you are positioned in relation to something. And this is exactly what we do when we're landing our aircraft. We are using this kind of judgment in order to see how high we are, combined with the radio altimeter callouts. So the radio altimeter calls do give us an idea of how high we are and what rate of closure we have to the runway. Don't look at the instruments at this point, you will be unable to make a good landing out of it. But rather just use your peripheral vision combined with your radio altimeter callouts while looking towards the end of the runway. Now this has two advantages. On one hand side, you can easily make out your height above the runway by doing that, and on the other hand side, you can easily determine your pitch during your flare when you're about to flare the airplane. So once again, it does take a little bit of practice to judge the correct pitching for the flare. So for the Boeing 737, you're looking to pitch up approximately 1 to 2 degrees during your flare. Now in the Airbus, you basically use 2 degrees on whichever model it is. 2 degrees of pitch up work pretty well on pretty much any Airbus model and in pretty much any landing configuration. Now, finally, when you start your flare in the 737 and also in the smaller Airbuses, somewhere between 20 and 30 feet, when you start your flare over there, then you just pitch up those 2 degrees and you use your peripheral vision in order to judge how high you are above the runway. Finally, and most importantly, don't try to flare the airplane into eternity, but much rather simply fly it right down onto the aiming point. This works very, very well using the technique described. However, it does take a little bit of practice. So when I first heard about this technique in the days when I was still, let's call it normal flight simmer, so before I had started any flight training, I initially found this one quite difficult. So what I would suggest to you is to go over to a video on how to fly traffic patterns in an airliner, or if you want to invest some money, maybe get an add-on like FSI panel, which can position you onto a 3-mile final like we would do in the real-world full-flight simulators when we do our landing practice. From there on, just shoot a couple of approaches and strictly follow that technique. Just look towards the end of the runway, and you don't need to worry about things running away from you on the panels, because by that time, in order to conduct the landing, we already have visual contact, so we can see the runway nicely, and your speed, if you fly a stable approach, is not going to be much of an issue. Just pull the thrust levers back and just keep watching towards the end of the runway when you apply that flare maneuver. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. I do hope you learned something on this. If you did, then do let me know in the comments below. I'm very much looking forward to what you think about this one, and finally, if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, and if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But until then, enjoy practicing your landings, and I see you all again on the next one.